Why are you alone? Those 4 words from a 5-year-old girl shattered the carefully constructed walls of Victoria Sterling, the youngest tech CEO in Silicon Valley. A woman worth $87 million sitting in a wheelchair in a corner cafe, realizing she had absolutely no one. What happened next would cost her everything she'd built, force her to choose between power and love, and prove that sometimes the most innocent question can destroy you or save you. This is her story. Before we begin, please subscribe and hit that notification bell because this journey gets intense and you won't want to miss a single moment. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel across the world. Now let's dive in. Ms. Sterling, your father is on line 3. Again. Victoria didn't even look up from her tablet. The cafe's ambient noise, the hiss of the espresso machine, the murmur of conversation, rain drumming against the windows, had become her sanctuary. Here no one knew her. No one wanted anything from her. "Tell him I'm unavailable," she said into her phone, her voice flat. Her assistant Rachel's sigh crackled through the speaker. "Victoria, that's the 4th time this week. He says it's about the board meeting. Then he can email me like everyone else." Victoria ended the call and immediately silenced her phone. She'd come to this cafe every Thursday evening for 3 months now, always ordering the same thing, black coffee, no sugar, and a blueberry scone she never finished. The owner, an elderly woman named Grace, had stopped asking if she wanted anything else. Victoria appreciated that. She appreciated being left alone. The rain intensified, sheets of water streaming down the floor-to-ceiling windows. Victoria pulled her cashmere wrap tighter around her shoulders. The cafe was nearly empty tonight, just her 2 college students hunched over laptops in the corner and Grace wiping down tables. Perfect. Her phone lit up again. Not her father this time. Marcus Chen, her CTO. She let it go to voicemail. Then her head of marketing. Voicemail. Then her lawyer. Voicemail. They'd all want the same thing: her decision on the merger with Technova. The deal that would make her company Sterling Dynamics the 3rd largest AI firm in the country. The deal her father had orchestrated behind her back, then presented to the board as a strategic opportunity. The deal that would require her to step down as CEO and take a advisory role, corporate speak, for being pushed out of her own company. Victoria took a long sip of her coffee, now cold. She'd built Sterling Dynamics from nothing. 5 years ago, she'd been a junior developer at a mid-tier software company. Her life neatly planned: climb the corporate ladder, make VP by 35, maybe start her own consulting firm eventually. Then came the accident. She didn't let herself think about that night anymore. The conference in Denver. The rideshare driver who'd been on his phone. The semi-truck that ran the red light. The 6 surgeries. The 9 months of physical therapy. The moment the neurologist had very carefully explained that while she'd regained most of her upper body mobility, her legs would never fully recover. "You'll walk again with assistance," he'd said, as if that were good news. "Crutches, a walker, maybe a cane on good days. But for longer distances, for safety, we recommend a wheelchair." Victoria had been 23 years old. Her boyfriend at the time, Kyle, a marketing manager she'd been dating for 2 years, had visited her exactly twice in the hospital. The second time, he'd stumbled through a speech about how he wasn't equipped to handle this, and how she deserved someone who could give her what she needed. He'd left her hospital room and never contacted her again. Her father, Richard Sterling, had been more subtle but equally devastating. He'd paid for everything, hired the best doctors, ensured she had round-the-clock care. But he'd also looked at her differently after that, not with pity exactly, but with something worse. Disappointment. As if her broken body had broken his plans for her too. So Victoria had done the only thing she knew how to do. She'd rebuilt herself into something stronger. She'd used the settlement money from the accident, $2.3 million, and launched Sterling Dynamics from her rehabilitation facility. While other patients were learning to use prosthetics or relearning basic motor skills, she was coding 18 hours a day, building an AI-driven accessibility platform that anticipated users' needs and adapted in real time. She'd pitched it to investors from her wheelchair, her leg braces visible beneath her skirt, daring them to underestimate her. They hadn't. Within 3 years, Sterling Dynamics had revolutionized assistive technology. Within 5, they'd expanded into enterprise AI automated systems and predictive analytics. Victoria had made herself indispensable, untouchable, or so she'd thought. The cafe door chimed, letting in a gust of cold air and the sound of rain. Victoria glanced up reflexively, then back at her tablet. A man and a small child, both dripping wet, the man carrying a bright pink umbrella that clearly belonged to the girl. "Daddy, you said we could get hot chocolate." The child's voice was high and insistent. "I know, pequeña, I know. Let's see what they have." Victoria turned her attention back to her screen, pulling up the merger documents for the 100th time. Her lawyer had highlighted the problem areas in yellow. There were a lot of yellow sections. "2 hot chocolates, please," the man was saying to Grace. "Extra whipped cream on hers, none on mine." "Coming right up, honey." Victoria scrolled through the contract, her jaw tightening. Clause after clause designed to strip her of control. Her father's fingerprints were all over this deal. Richard Sterling had spent his entire career building and selling companies, and now he wanted to do the same with hers. Never mind that she'd explicitly told him she wasn't interested in selling. Never mind that Sterling Dynamics was her creation, not his. "Why is that lady alone?" The child's voice cut through Victoria's concentration. She looked up. The little girl was staring directly at her, her brown eyes wide and guileless. She couldn't have been more than 5, dressed in a yellow raincoat with cartoon ducks on it, her dark curls escaping from beneath a matching hat. "Emma, that's not polite." The man, her father, presumably looked mortified. He was young, maybe early 30s, with kind eyes and carpenter's hands, scarred capable. "I'm so sorry," he said to Victoria. But Victoria was frozen, the little girl's question echoing in her mind. "Why are you alone?" "It's fine," Victoria heard herself say, though her voice sounded strange, distant. "No, it's not. Emma, we don't ask personal questions to strangers." He turned back to Victoria, his embarrassment genuine. "She's 5. She hasn't learned the filter yet." "But Daddy, she is alone. There's nobody with her." Emma tilted her head, studying Victoria with that unnerving directness that only children possess. "Are you sad?" "Emma, I'm not sad," Victoria said, and realized it was a lie the moment the words left her mouth. She wasn't sad. She was empty. There was a difference. The man, Daniel, she'd learn later, knelt down to his daughter's level, his voice gentle but firm. "Sometimes people like to have quiet time by themselves, okay? That doesn't mean they're sad. It just means they want peace." Emma considered this, then looked back at Victoria. "Do you want peace?" Victoria found herself almost smiling. Almost. Something like that. "2 hot chocolates," Grace called from the counter, saving Victoria from further interrogation. Daniel stood, giving Victoria an apologetic smile. "Again, I'm really sorry. We're still working on social boundaries." "It's fine, really." But as Daniel led Emma back to their table, one near the window, where Emma immediately pressed her face against the glass to watch the rain, Victoria couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The little girl's question had burrowed under her skin like a splinter. "Why are you alone?" She forced her attention back to her tablet, but the words on the screen might as well have been gibberish. She could hear Emma chattering to her father, a stream of consciousness monologue about rain and ducks, and whether hot chocolate was better, with or without marshmallows. "The answer is with, pequeña. Always with." "But you don't like marshmallows." "I don't. But you do, and that's what matters." Victoria's chest tightened. When was the last time someone had asked her what she wanted? Not what decision she needed to make, not what strategy she preferred, not what move would benefit the company, but what she actually wanted. She couldn't remember. Her phone lit up again. Her father. Victoria declined the call and set the phone face down on the table. "Is your phone broken?" Emma's voice. Victoria looked up to find the little girl standing beside her table, holding her cup of hot chocolate, with both hands whipped cream already on her nose. Emma, Daniel was halfway out of his seat looking horrified. "I'm so sorry." "It's okay." And surprisingly it was. There was something about this child's unflinching curiosity that Victoria found not irritating. Refreshing, maybe. "My phone works fine. I'm just ignoring it." "Why?" "Because sometimes people call when you don't want to talk to them." Emma nodded sagely, as if this made perfect sense. "Like when Daddy's boss calls on Sunday, he makes a face like this." She scrunched up her features in an exaggerated grimace. Despite herself, Victoria laughed. Actually laughed. When was the last time that had happened? Daniel had reached them now, his hand on Emma's shoulder. "Okay, chatterbox, let's leave the nice lady alone." "I don't mind," Victoria said, and was startled to realize she meant it. Daniel hesitated clearly, torn between teaching his daughter boundaries and not wanting to be rude. Up close, Victoria could see the fatigue in his face, the shadow of something sad behind his smile. "I'm Daniel Rodriguez," he said, finally extending his hand. "And this is Emma, my daughter and personal boundary violation specialist." Victoria shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm. "Victoria Sterling." "Are you famous?" Emma asked. "You look fancy." "Emma." "I'm not famous," Victoria said. "I just work a lot." "What do you do?" "I run a technology company." "What's technology?" Daniel groaned. "Emma, enough questions. I'm sure Ms. Sterling has work to do." "Actually," Victoria heard herself say, "I was just about to take a break." Why had she said that? She didn't take breaks. She especially didn't take breaks to talk to strangers and their curious children in cafes. But Daniel looked so relieved, and Emma so delighted, that Victoria found herself gesturing to the empty chairs at her table. "Would you like to sit?" "Are you sure?" Daniel asked. "We don't want to intrude." "If I'm being honest, I've been staring at the same document for an hour. I could use the distraction." That was true at least. The merger papers had started to blur together, all those yellow highlights bleeding into one giant warning sign she didn't want to read. Daniel exchanged a glance with Emma, who was already climbing into the chair across from Victoria, careful not to spill her hot chocolate. "Just for a minute," Daniel said, though he looked grateful as he sat down. "We're actually new to the city. Just moved here 2 weeks ago." "From where?" "Phoenix. I got a job with a construction company here. They specialize in accessible design. Ramps, modified kitchens, barrier-free spaces, that kind of thing." "That must be interesting work." "It is. It's actually how I got into construction. My wife, He glanced at Emma, who was focused on her hot chocolate. "She used a wheelchair. I started learning about accessibility to make our home more comfortable for her." The past tense hung in the air between them. Victoria understood immediately. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Daniel nodded, his expression carefully neutral. "It's been 2 years. Emma was 3 when it happened. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light." Victoria's hands clenched involuntarily around her coffee cup. "I'm sorry," she said again, inadequate as the words were. "Mama's in heaven," Emma announced, seemingly unbothered. "She watches over us. Daddy says she makes the stars bright." "That's beautiful," Victoria said, and meant it. Daniel gave his daughter a soft smile, then turned back to Victoria. "Anyway, we needed a fresh start. Phoenix had too many memories, you know. So when this job came through, I figured it was a sign. Emma's starting kindergarten next week." "I'm gonna make so many friends," Emma said confidently. "And learn to read chapter books." "That's quite a goal," Victoria said. "What about you?" Daniel asked. "Are you from here to born and raised?" "Well raised. I was born in Connecticut, but we moved here when I was 6. "Do you have family here?" The question shouldn't have stung, but it did. "My father. We're not close." Daniel seemed to sense the tension in that statement and didn't push. Instead, he took a sip of his hot chocolate, then grimaced slightly. "Too sweet?" Victoria asked. "Way too sweet. But Emma insisted I had to try hers first to make sure it was good enough." He set the cup down. "I'm more of a coffee person." "Me too. Black, no sugar." "Same." Daniel smiled, and it transformed his face. The sadness receded, replaced by genuine warmth. "So you run a tech company?" "I do. Sterling Dynamics. We develop AI systems for various applications. Accessibility, enterprise automation, predictive analytics." "That sounds complicated." "It is. And successful, I'm guessing, if you can afford to hang out in overpriced cafes on Thursday nights." Victoria almost smiled. "This place isn't that expensive. Compared to the coffee I make at home, it is." Daniel leaned back in his chair, studying her. "So, what's a successful tech CEO doing sitting alone in a cafe on a rainy Thursday night? Shouldn't you be at some fancy dinner or networking event?" Victoria stiffened. "I prefer quiet." "That's fair. Sorry, I didn't mean to pry." But Emma, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly said, "You're sad because you're alone." "Emma, it's okay to be sad." Emma continued with the earnest wisdom of a 5-year-old. "Daddy says it's okay to feel feelings. Right, Daddy?" Daniel looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. "Yes, but—" "I'm not sad," Victoria said, but her voice cracked slightly. "I'm just tired." Emma reached across the table and patted Victoria's hand with sticky chocolate-covered fingers. "It's okay. Daddy gets tired too. That's when we have movie nights and eat popcorn for dinner." Victoria stared at this tiny child's hand on hers, and something inside her chest cracked open. When was the last time someone had touched her with genuine affection? Not a handshake, not a professional pat on the shoulder, but actual human warmth. She couldn't remember. "That sounds nice," Victoria managed to say. "You should come," Emma said brightly. "We're watching Moana this weekend. Do you like Moana?" "I haven't seen it." Emma gasped like Victoria had just admitted to a crime. "You haven't seen Moana, Daddy. She hasn't seen Moana." "I heard Pequeña." "You have to come watch it with us. You can't go your whole life without seeing Moana. That's just sad." Daniel was frantically shaking his head at Victoria, mouthing, "You don't have to." But Victoria found herself saying, "Maybe I will." Why had she said that? She didn't watch movies with strangers. She barely watched movies at all. But Emma was beaming at her like she'd just promised to make all her birthday wishes come true. And Daniel was looking at her with something like surprise and gratitude. And Victoria realized that for the first time in months, maybe years, she felt something other than empty. "Actually," Daniel said, pulling out his phone, "before my daughter completely hijacks your evening, I should ask you, said you run an AI company." "I do." "Do you ever work with accessibility consultants? Because that's kind of my specialty. And if your company does any physical products or spaces—" "We don't currently, but we're actually looking to expand in that direction." Victoria wasn't sure why she was saying this. It was true they'd been discussing accessibility-focused products for months, but she usually didn't discuss business with strangers in cafes. "Do you have a card?" Daniel fished a slightly bent business card out of his wallet. "I know it's forward, but it's not forward, it's practical." Victoria took the card, studying it. Daniel Rodriguez, Accessibility Design Specialist. A local phone number. "I'll have my assistant reach out." "Really? Really? We're always looking for consultants who actually understand the user experience rather than just the compliance requirements." Daniel's smile widened. "That would be amazing. Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We're very demanding clients. I'd expect nothing less from someone who drinks black coffee with no sugar." They talked for another 20 minutes about the city, about Emma's upcoming school year, about Daniel's work. Victoria learned that he'd been designing accessible spaces for 7 years, that his late wife Sophia had been a teacher, that he was living with Sophia's mother while he looked for a permanent place. Maria, that's my mother-in-law. She's been incredible, Daniel said. I don't know what we would have done without her. She moved in with us after Sophia died, and when I said I wanted to relocate, she came with us without hesitation. She's the grandmother Emma deserves. She sounds wonderful. She is, though she's constantly trying to set me up with random women. Daniel laughed, but there was an edge of discomfort to it. She means well, but I'm not exactly ready for that yet. Victoria understood. She'd spent 5 years building armor around her heart. She couldn't imagine letting someone through those walls again. Finally, Emma yawned hugely, her eyelids drooping. Time to get you home, Daniel said, standing. He looked at Victoria. Thank you for letting us crash your table, and for being so patient with Emma's interrogation. It was actually nice, Victoria said, and realized she meant it. Well, if you're serious about the Moana thing, we're watching it Saturday afternoon, around 2. No pressure, obviously, but can I let you know? Of course. Daniel helped Emma into her raincoat. Come on, Pequeña. Say goodbye to Ms. Sterling. Bye, Victoria, Emma said, then surprised Victoria by hugging her a quick, fierce squeeze that left chocolate fingerprints on Victoria's expensive wrap. Victoria didn't mind at all. After they left, the cafe felt emptier than before. Victoria looked down at the business card in her hand, then at the merger documents still glowing on her tablet screen. She thought about Emma's question, "Why are you alone?" She thought about Daniel's quiet strength, the way he talked about his late wife with love, instead of bitterness. She thought about how she'd laughed tonight, actually laughed for the first time in months. Then she looked at her phone at the 15 missed calls from her father and felt the weight of her real life settling back onto her shoulders. But something had shifted. That splinter under her skin had worked its way deeper, and Victoria knew that no amount of ignoring it would make it go away. Why are you alone? Because it's easier, she thought. Because people leave. Because letting someone in means giving them the power to hurt you. Because I'm afraid. Victoria packed up her things, paid Grace, and wheeled herself out into the rain. Her driver was waiting at the curb umbrella ready. Home, Ms. Sterling. Victoria looked at the business card one more time, then tucked it carefully into her purse. Yes, home. But as the car pulled away from the cafe, Victoria couldn't stop thinking about a little girl's chocolate-covered hands and a single dad's kind eyes and the question that had shattered her carefully constructed solitude. Why are you alone? Maybe she thought it was time to find out. Victoria stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Friday morning, barely recognizing the woman looking back at her. She'd slept 4 hours, maybe less, her mind replaying the conversation with Daniel and Emma on an endless loop. Why are you alone? Because I choose to be, she said out loud to her reflection. The words sounded hollow even to her own ears. Her phone buzzed on the marble countertop. Rachel, her assistant. Morning, Victoria. Your father called 3 times already. He wants to know if you've reviewed the merger documents. Victoria closed her eyes. Tell him I'm still reviewing. He's not going to accept that answer much longer. The board meeting is Monday. Then I have the weekend, don't I? Rachel paused. Victoria, are you okay? You sound different. I'm fine. Clear my schedule for this afternoon. I have a consultation. With whom? Victoria looked at Daniel's business card still sitting on her nightstand where she'd placed it the night before. An accessibility specialist. Daniel Rodriguez. I don't have him in the system. Because I'm adding him to the system. Call him. Tell him I'd like him to visit my penthouse today at 3 to discuss potential modifications. Another pause. Rachel had worked for Victoria for 3 years and knew when to push and when to stay silent. This time she chose silence. I'll set it up. Thank you, Rachel. Victoria ended the call and immediately regretted it. What was she doing? She didn't need accessibility modifications. Her penthouse had cost $8 million and been featured in Architectural Digest. It was perfect. Except it wasn't. Not really. The sleek modern design looked stunning in photographs, but living in it was another matter entirely. The open-concept kitchen had counters too high for her to reach from her wheelchair. The master bathroom had a shower with a 6-inch lip she had to navigate carefully every morning. The home office had built-in shelves she couldn't access without help. She'd adapted. She'd learned to work around the limitations. She'd told herself it didn't matter because she was rarely home anyway. But last night, listening to Daniel talk about designing spaces that actually worked for people with disabilities, not just spaces that looked accessible, something had clicked into place. Her phone rang. Her father. This time she answered. Victoria. Dad? You've been avoiding me. Richard Sterling's voice was clipped impatient. We need to discuss the merger. There's nothing to discuss. I told you I'm not interested. Your personal feelings are irrelevant. The board has voted. This deal is happening. Victoria's grip tightened on her phone. The board voted because you manipulated them. You went behind my back. I did what was necessary. Sterling Dynamics has plateaued. This merger with Technova gives us the resources to scale properly. We don't need to scale. We're profitable. We're growing steadily. Steady isn't enough, Victoria. You should know that by now. Her father's voice softened slightly, which somehow made it worse. I'm trying to protect you. This company is consuming your life. When was the last time you took a vacation? When was the last time you went on a date? That's none of your business. It is when you're sacrificing your health and happiness for a company that would be better off under professional management. Professional management, I built this company from nothing. You built it from my money, her father said quietly. The words hit like a physical blow. Victoria had to steady herself against the counter. The settlement money was mine, she managed to say. And who negotiated that settlement? Who hired the lawyers? Who made sure you got every penny you deserved after that accident? Richard sighed. I'm not trying to hurt you, Victoria. I'm trying to help you. This merger gives you financial security for life. You can step back, consult from an advisory role, actually live for once, instead of hiding behind work. I'm not hiding. Aren't you? Victoria ended the call before she said something she'd regret. Her hands were shaking. She gripped the edge of the counter until they steadied. Her father was wrong. She wasn't hiding. She was building something that mattered. Something that proved her worth, had nothing to do with her legs or her disability or anyone's pity. She was fine. She was absolutely fine. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, Victoria's doorbell rang. She'd spent the morning working from home trying to focus on quarterly projections and failing miserably. Every number on her screen had eventually blurred into that one question. Why are you alone? She opened the door to find Daniel standing there, looking professional in khaki pants and a button-down shirt, a worn leather messenger bag over his shoulder. Emma was with him holding his hand. I hope it's okay that I brought her, Daniel said immediately. My mother-in-law had a doctor's appointment, and I couldn't find a sitter on such short notice. It's fine, Victoria said, and was surprised to find she meant it. Come in. Emma's eyes went wide as they entered the penthouse. Daddy, it's like a castle. It's certainly impressive, Daniel agreed, but Victoria noticed him already scanning the space with a critical eye. Not impressed. Assessing. Can I get you anything? Coffee, water? Water would be great, thanks. Victoria led them toward the kitchen, acutely aware of how Daniel was noticing everything. The narrow hallway, the steps down into the sunken living room, the high countertops. This is a beautiful space, Daniel said carefully. But, Victoria prompted. But it wasn't designed for someone who uses a wheelchair. No, it wasn't. Victoria handed him a bottle of water, having to stretch uncomfortably to reach the refrigerator. I bought it before I fully accepted that I'd be using the chair long term. I thought maybe I'd be able to use crutches most of the time or a cane. But the reality is, for anything more than short distances, the wheelchair is more practical. Daniel nodded, not with pity, but with understanding. May I look around? That's why you're here. For the next 30 minutes, Daniel moved through her penthouse, taking notes, occasionally taking measurements with a laser measure from his bag. Emma stayed close to Victoria, fascinated by her wheelchair. Does it go fast? Emma asked. Pretty fast. Can I see? Victoria glanced at Daniel, who nodded permission. She did a quick spin, then rolled backward, making Emma giggle. I wish I had wheels, Emma said wistfully. They're useful, Victoria admitted. But they're not always fun. Why not? Because sometimes there are places wheels can't go. Steps, narrow doorways, spaces that weren't built thinking about people like me. Emma considered this seriously. That's not fair. No, it's not. Daddy makes things fair, Emma said with absolute confidence. He made our whole house so Mama could go everywhere. Even the garden. He built special ramps and everything. Your daddy sounds very smart. He is. He's the smartest daddy in the whole world. Daniel returned from his inspection, his expression serious. Can we talk? Of course. Emma, can you sit here and draw for a minute? Daniel pulled a coloring book and crayons from his bag. Stay on the couch, okay? Okay, Daddy. Daniel led Victoria to the kitchen far enough that Emma couldn't overhear. He pulled out his notebook. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, he said. This space is beautiful, but it's actively working against you. These counters are 38 inches high. Standard accessible height is 34 inches maximum. Your bathroom has a lip on the shower. Your bedroom closet has rods you can't reach. The sunken living room is a mobility hazard. Even your front door is heavy enough that it could be difficult to manage if you're having a low-energy day. Victoria felt heat rising in her cheeks. I manage fine. I'm sure you do, but managing isn't the same as thriving. Daniel's voice was gentle, but firm. Can I ask you something personal? How often do you cook? Victoria blinked at the unexpected question. I don't. Because you don't like cooking, or because your kitchen isn't functional for you? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. When had she last cooked? She used to love cooking. Before the accident, she'd hosted dinner parties, experimented with new recipes, spent Sunday afternoons making elaborate meals. The kitchen isn't functional, she admitted quietly. Do you use your master bathroom or the guest bathroom? Guest bathroom. The master is too difficult. Do you spend time in your living room? No. Those steps are dangerous. What about your office? Do you use the built-in shelves? I can't reach them. Daniel closed his notebook. Victoria, you're living in an $8 million penthouse and using maybe 40% of it. You've adapted to spaces that don't work for you instead of making spaces that do. Why? The question hit harder than Emma's had. Victoria found herself gripping the edge of the counter. Because I didn't want to admit I needed the modifications, she said finally. Because accepting that means accepting that I'm disabled, that I'm different, that I need help. And I've spent 5 years proving I don't need anyone's help. There's a difference between needing help and needing functional design, Daniel said. If I put your computer on the floor, you wouldn't be able to work effectively. That doesn't make you weak. It makes the design bad. Your home should work for you, not against you. Victoria felt tears pricking at her eyes and blinked them back angrily. She didn't cry. She hadn't cried in years. How much would it cost to fix? She asked. That depends on what you want to change. Full renovation. Probably $500,000. Strategic modifications. Maybe 100,000. That's a lot of money. You run an AI company. I'm guessing you can afford it. Victoria almost smiled. Fair point. The real question is whether you want to invest in making this space actually yours, or if you're going to keep living in a museum that doesn't fit your life. Before Victoria could answer, Emma called out from the living room. Daddy, I'm hungry. Daniel checked his watch. We should go. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to run over. You didn't. This was helpful. Victoria followed him back to the living room, where Emma was packing up her crayons. "I'd like to hire you." Daniel looked surprised. "For your company. For my home. And yes, potentially for the company too. We've been discussing launching an accessibility-focused division. We could use someone who actually understands the users, not just the regulations." That would be incredible. But I should warn you, I'm not cheap." "Good. Cheap consultants give cheap advice." Victoria pulled out her phone. "Rachel will send you a contract. For the home modifications, I'd like you to start with an assessment of what needs to change. For the company position, we can discuss that separately." "Are you sure about this?" "No," Victoria admitted. "But I'm tired of managing. I want to try thriving." Daniel smiled, and Victoria felt something warm unfurl in her chest. "Can we come back?" Emma asked. "I like it here." "Emma, you can't invite yourself places." "Actually," Victoria heard herself say, "I meant what I said about Moana. If the offer's still open for tomorrow." "Seriously?" Daniel looked genuinely shocked. "Seriously, what time?" 2 o'clock. "But you really don't have to." "I want to." And she did. That was the terrifying part. She actually wanted to spend her Saturday afternoon watching a Disney movie with a 5-year-old and her single dad contractor instead of reviewing merger documents. "Then we'd love to have you." Daniel wrote down his address. "It's not fancy. We're staying with my mother-in-law until I find us a permanent place." "I don't need fancy," Victoria said. "I have fancy. Apparently fancy doesn't work very well." Emma hugged Victoria goodbye, leaving more fingerprints on her clothes. Victoria didn't mind. After they left, she stood in her beautiful, impractical penthouse and looked around with new eyes. Daniel was right. She'd been managing, not thriving. She'd built herself a life that looked perfect from the outside, but felt empty from the inside. Her phone rang. Marcus Chen, her CTO. "The board is getting nervous about Monday's meeting," Marcus said without preamble. "Your father's been talking to everyone individually. He's got the votes, Victoria." "He doesn't have mine. If you vote against this, and the board overrides you, it's going to look worse than if you just accept it gracefully." "Since when do I do anything gracefully?" Marcus laughed, but it was strained. "What are you going to do?" Victoria looked at Daniel's business card still sitting on her counter. She thought about Emma's question. She thought about 5 years of building walls around herself, of proving her worth through work, of being alone because it was easier than being vulnerable. "I'm going to make a choice," she said. "I'll see you Monday, Marcus." She ended the call and stood there in her kitchen with its 2 high counters in her penthouse that had never felt like home. And for the first time in 5 years, Victoria Sterling admitted to herself that she was tired. Tired of managing. Tired of proving herself. Tired of being alone. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel confirming she'd sent the contract to Daniel. Victoria stared at it, then opened a new message. She typed, "Thank you for being honest with me today." She hesitated, then added, "I'm looking forward to tomorrow." She hit send before she could change her mind. Daniel's response came 30 seconds later. "Emma's already planning the snack menu. Fair warning, it involves a lot of popcorn and gummy bears." Victoria smiled. Actually smiled. Then she typed, "Sounds perfect." Because maybe it was time to stop managing her life and start actually living it. Maybe it was time to answer Emma's question, not with defensiveness or denial, but with honesty. Why was she alone? Because she'd been afraid. Because letting people in meant risking pain. But sitting alone in her beautiful empty penthouse, Victoria realized that the pain of loneliness was worse than the fear of vulnerability. She looked at the merger documents still waiting on her tablet. Her father's voice echoed in her head. "The board has voted. This deal is happening." But it wasn't happening. Not if Victoria had anything to say about it. She'd built Sterling Dynamics from nothing, from a hospital bed, from determination and skill and sheer stubborn will. She wasn't giving it up. Not to her father, not to anyone. But maybe, just maybe, she could stop sacrificing everything else in her life to prove that point. Victoria opened her laptop and started typing an email to her lawyer. By the time she finished, it was almost midnight. But she had a plan. A real plan. Not just for saving her company, but for reclaiming her life. Saturday morning. Victoria woke up nervous for the first time in years. She changed outfits 3 times before settling on casual jeans and a soft sweater. Nothing too formal. Nothing that screamed tech CEO. Just Victoria. The address Daniel had given her was in a modest neighborhood 30 minutes from her penthouse. The house was small, painted yellow with white trim, with a carefully maintained garden and a ramp leading to the front porch. Victoria sat in her car for 5 minutes, telling herself this was ridiculous. She could still leave. She could text an excuse, go back to her penthouse, spend the weekend preparing for Monday's board meeting like she should. But then the front door opened and Emma came running out, her face lighting up when she saw Victoria's car. Too late to run now. "You came! You came!" Emma was bouncing with excitement as Victoria got her wheelchair out of the car. "Daddy's making popcorn, and Abuela made cookies, and we're going to watch Moana, and it's going to be the best day ever." Daniel appeared in the doorway smiling. "I see you've been thoroughly greeted." "Very thoroughly. Come on in. Fair warning, my mother-in-law is very excited to meet you. She's been asking questions all morning." Victoria followed them inside immediately, struck by how different this space felt from her own home. It was small, yes, and modestly furnished, but every inch of it was designed for living. The ramp, the wide doorways, the lowered light switches. An older woman emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. She had Emma's dark eyes and Daniel's warm smile. "You must be Victoria. I'm Maria Martinez. Welcome, welcome." She pulled Victoria into a hug before Victoria could react. "Daniel tells me you're going to help make his dream come true with your company." "I hope so," Victoria managed. "And you're a CEO, so impressive, and so young. Daniel, did you tell her about the position we saw posted last week?" "Mama, Victoria probably doesn't want to talk about work." "No, it's fine," Victoria said. "What position?" "The Children's Hospital is looking for technology consultants to improve their accessibility programs. Daniel wanted to apply but wasn't sure if he had the right credentials." "He does," Victoria said firmly. "And if they don't see that they're idiots, I'll write you a recommendation if you want." Daniel looked stunned. "You've known me for 2 days. And in those 2 days, you've shown me more practical insight into accessibility than most consultants I've met in 5 years. Trust me, you're qualified." Maria beamed. "I like her, mijo. She's smart." "I know, mama." They settled in the living room, which had clearly been transformed into a movie theater. Blankets were piled on the couch, bowls of popcorn and candy covered the coffee table, and Emma had already claimed the best spot. "You sit here," Emma instructed Victoria, patting the cushion next to her. "Daddy sits on the other side. Abuela sits in her special chair." Victoria maneuvered her wheelchair next to the couch, then feeling brave transferred onto the cushion. Emma immediately snuggled against her. "You smell nice," Emma announced. "Like flowers." "Thank you." Daniel started the movie, then sat down on Emma's other side. Maria settled in her recliner with a bowl of popcorn. Victoria couldn't remember the last time she'd watched a movie in the middle of the afternoon. She couldn't remember the last time she'd done anything just because it was fun, not because it was productive or necessary. As the opening scene played, Emma whispered explanations and commentary, pointing out her favorite parts. "That's Moana. She's brave, like you." "I'm not that brave," Victoria whispered back. "Yes, you are. You have wheels, and you're not scared." "I'm scared of lots of things." Emma tilted her head. "Like what?" Victoria glanced at Daniel, who was pretending not to listen. "Like being alone," she admitted quietly. Emma squeezed her hand. You're not alone. You're here with us. And just like that, with a 5-year-old's simple logic, Victoria felt something inside her shift. She wasn't alone. Not right now. Maybe that was enough. Halfway through the movie, Maria got up to answer the phone. Victoria heard her voice from the kitchen speaking rapid Spanish, then a long silence. Daniel noticed too. Mama, everything okay? Maria returned, her face pale. That was the landlord. He's selling the property. We have 30 days to find a new place. The joy drained from the room. Daniel stood up, running his hand through his hair. 30 days. That's not legal. He says it is. Month-to-month lease. He's giving us the minimum notice. What about deposits? References? I know, mijo, I know. Maria looked devastated. I'm sorry. I know you were hoping to have more time to save up. Emma, sensing the adult's distress, pressed closer to Victoria. Are we going to be homeless? No, pequeña. We'll figure something out. But Daniel's voice was tight with stress. Victoria found herself speaking before she'd fully thought it through. My building has units available. Everyone turned to look at her. Your building, Daniel repeated. The same building as my penthouse. There are several units. Some are rentals managed by the building. They're expensive, but I could talk to the management company, maybe work something out. We can't afford expensive, Daniel said gently. I appreciate the thought, but I own the building. Silence. You own the building, Daniel repeated slowly. I bought it when I purchased the penthouse. Investment purposes. Victoria felt her face heating. There are currently 3 vacant units. One is a 3-bedroom on the 15th floor. If you're interested, I could rent it to you at whatever you're paying now. Victoria, that's too generous. It's not generous, it's practical. I have empty units sitting vacant. You need a place to live. The building is fully accessible. There's a community room, a gym, a rooftop garden. Emma would have space to play. Victoria looked at Maria. And there's a senior center 2 blocks away. You'd have community. Maria's eyes filled with tears. You would do this for us. You barely know us. I know enough, Victoria said. And she did. She knew Daniel was a good father and a skilled professional. She knew Maria was kind and welcoming. She knew Emma had asked her a question that had changed her entire perspective. She knew these people in 2 days had shown her more genuine warmth than she'd experienced in 5 years. Can we think about it? Daniel asked, his voice rough. Of course, but don't take too long. I need to know by Monday so I can tell my property manager. The rest of the movie passed in a blur. Victoria could feel Daniel watching her, could sense his confusion and gratitude and suspicion all warring together. She understood. She'd probably feel the same way if their positions were reversed. When the movie ended, Emma was asleep against Victoria's shoulder. Maria carefully lifted her and carried her to bed. Daniel walked Victoria to the door. Why are you doing this? Doing what? All of this. The consultation, the job offer, the apartment. You don't know us. Victoria looked at him. This man who'd lost his wife and built a life for his daughter anyway, who designed spaces that actually worked for people, instead of just looking good, who'd been honest with her when everyone else just told her what she wanted to hear. Your daughter asked me why I was alone, she said quietly. I've been thinking about that question for 2 days, and the answer is because I chose to be, because it was easier, because I was scared. She met his eyes. I'm tired of being scared, Daniel. I'm tired of being alone. Maybe I don't know you very well yet, but I'd like to. Is that enough? Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, soft and genuine. Yeah, that's enough. Victoria drove home with Emma's question still echoing in her mind, but this time it didn't hurt. This time it felt like possibility. Why are you alone? Maybe she didn't have to be anymore. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Victoria had spent Sunday preparing for the board meeting, reviewing financials, drafting counterarguments, building her case for why the Technova merger was wrong for Sterling Dynamics. She'd worked until 3 in the morning, fueled by coffee and determination. But when she wheeled into the conference room at 9 sharp, she knew immediately that something had shifted. The board members wouldn't meet her eyes. Marcus Chen looked physically ill, and her father sat at the head of the table wearing an expression of satisfied victory. "Victoria, so glad you could join us." Richard Sterling's voice was smooth as silk. "I trust you've had time to review the merger documents." "I have, and my position hasn't changed. This merger isn't in the company's best interest." "The board disagrees." Victoria looked around the table. 12 faces, most of them people she'd worked with for years. People she'd thought respected her. "Does anyone want to explain why?" she asked quietly. Silence. Then finally Jennifer Wallace, the CFO, spoke up. "Victoria, the numbers make sense. Technova's resources combined with our technology would position us to dominate the market." "At what cost?" "My position as CEO. You'd have an advisory role." "I don't want an advisory role. I built this company. I'm not interested in watching someone else run it into the ground." "Into the ground?" Her father's laugh was cold. "Technova is a Fortune 500 company. They have infrastructure capital market reach that we could never achieve on our own. We don't need to achieve it. We're growing sustainably." "Sustainably isn't enough." Richard slammed his hand on the table, making several board members jump. "Do you know what your problem is, Victoria? You think small. You always have. You're content to build a nice little company that makes a respectable profit when you could be building an empire." "I don't want an empire. I want a company that actually helps people." "How noble." Her father's voice dripped with sarcasm. "And when you're lying awake at night alone in that empty penthouse, does that noble purpose keep you warm?" Victoria felt every eye in the room on her. The pity, the embarrassment, the agreement. "That's not relevant to this discussion," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Isn't it? This company is all you have, Victoria. It's consumed your entire life. You have no friends, no relationships, no life outside these walls. And now you're willing to sabotage a deal that would secure your financial future forever, just because you can't stand the idea of someone else being in charge." "That's not why." "Then tell me honestly, what are you afraid of?" Her father leaned forward. "Because, from where I'm sitting, you're terrified that without this company, you're nothing. That your worth is tied to your position, your success, your control. And the thought of letting that go, even for something better, is more than you can bear." The words hit like physical blows. Victoria gripped the arms of her wheelchair, her knuckles white. "The board has voted," Richard continued. 10-2 in favor of the merger. You can accept this gracefully and maintain some dignity, or you can fight it and destroy what little goodwill you have left." "Who voted against?" Victoria asked. "Marcus and Elizabeth." Victoria looked at Marcus, who gave her an apologetic shrug. Elizabeth Yang, head of R&D, nodded slightly. "The rest of you?" Victoria scanned the faces around the table. "You're really okay with this? With pushing me out of my own company?" Jennifer Wallace spoke again, her voice gentle but firm. "No one's pushing you out, Victoria. We're asking you to transition to a role that might actually allow you to have a life. You work 16-hour days. You haven't taken a vacation in 5 years. You're here on weekends, holidays, middle of the night. This isn't healthy." "My health is my concern." "It becomes the board's concern when it affects your judgment," her father said. "You're not thinking clearly, Victoria. You're letting emotion override logic." "I'm letting principle override greed." "Call it what you want. The decision is made. You can sign the papers today and walk away with $70 million and an advisory position that requires maybe 10 hours a week. Or you can fight this and lose everything, including your reputation." Victoria looked at her father across that polished conference table, and for the first time in 5 years, she saw him clearly. Not as the man who'd supported her after the accident, not as the father who'd paid for her medical care, but as the man who'd looked at his disabled daughter and seen damaged goods. A failed investment. Someone who needed to be managed and controlled. "No," she said quietly. "No what? No, I won't sign, and no, I won't step down." Victoria met each board member's eyes in turn. "You all seem to have forgotten something. I'm not just the CEO of this company. I'm the majority shareholder. I own 51% of Sterling Dynamics. You can vote however you want, but you can't force me to sign anything." Her father's expression darkened. "Victoria, you built your career on buying and selling companies, Dad, on viewing businesses as assets to be leveraged. But this company isn't an asset to me. It's proof that my life didn't end in that hospital room. It's proof that I'm worth something beyond what you think I should be." She straightened in her chair. "So no, I won't sign. And if you don't like it, you can take it up with my lawyers." The conference room erupted. Board members talking over each other, her father demanding she reconsider, Marcus trying to mediate. Victoria sat in the center of the chaos, feeling strangely calm. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Daniel. "Emma wants to know if you're coming for dinner tonight. Fair warning, she's planning to cook. By which I mean I'll be cooking while she helps." Victoria looked at the message, then at the chaos around her, and made a decision. She stood up from the table, not in her wheelchair, but actually stood supporting herself on the chair's arms. The room fell silent. "I'm leaving," she announced. "You can continue this meeting without me, but my answer is final. The merger is dead, and if any of you have a problem with that, my lawyers will be in touch." "Victoria Sterling, if you walk out of this room," her father started. You'll what, Dad?" "Cut me off. Stop talking to me. I think we both know you already did that 5 years ago." She sat back down in her wheelchair and rolled toward the door. Marcus jumped up to follow her. "Victoria, wait." "Not now, Marcus. I need to think." "At least tell me you have a plan." Victoria paused at the door, looking back at her CTO, one of the only people in that room who'd voted to support her. "I'm working on it." She left before anyone could stop her, rolling down the corridor toward the elevator. Her heart was pounding, adrenaline surging through her veins. She'd just effectively declared war on her own board of directors, on her father, on everything she'd spent 5 years building, and she had no idea what to do next. Her phone rang. "Rachel." "I heard," her assistant said without preamble. "The whole office heard. Your father's voice carries." "I don't want to talk about it." "Too bad. I'm coming over tonight with wine and Chinese food, and you're going to tell me what's really going on." "I have plans." "Cancel them." "No." Victoria found herself smiling despite everything. "I have dinner with a friend." Silence. Then, "Did you just say friend?" "I did." Victoria Sterling has a friend. The same Victoria Sterling who once told me that friends were distractions she couldn't afford. People change, Rachel. Apparently. Is this friend the accessibility consultant you had me send a contract to? Maybe. The one you're renting an apartment to at half market value. How did you know about that? I'm your assistant. I know everything. So what's going on? Victoria wheeled herself into the elevator, waiting until the doors closed before answering. I don't know. I met this guy and his daughter at a café last week and they've just, I don't know, made me question everything. Made you question or made you realize? Is there a difference? A big one. Questioning means you're confused. Realizing means you're finally seeing clearly. Victoria thought about Emma's chocolate-covered hands and Daniel's honest assessment of her penthouse and Maria's warm hug. She thought about watching Moana on a Saturday afternoon and feeling more present, more alive than she had in years. Realizing, she said softly. I'm realizing. Good. Because between you and me, your father's an ass, and that merger was always a terrible idea. Victoria laughed, surprising herself. Don't let him hear you say that. Please. I've been mentally drafting my resignation letter for 6 months. If you go down, I'm going with you. Rachel. Don't argue. Now go have dinner with your friend and his daughter. And Victoria. Whatever you decide to do about this company, make sure it's what you actually want, not what you think you should want. There's a difference. The call ended, leaving Victoria alone in the elevator with her thoughts. What did she actually want? For 5 years, she'd wanted to prove herself. To show everyone, her father, Kyle, the doctors, herself, that she was still valuable, still capable, still worth something. But somewhere along the way, proving her worth had become the only thing that mattered. She'd sacrificed relationships, happiness, peace, all in service of a goal that kept moving further away. The elevator opened onto the parking garage. Victoria wheeled herself to her car, where her driver was waiting. Home, Ms. Sterling. Victoria looked at her phone at Daniel's text, still glowing on the screen. Emma wants to know if you're coming for dinner tonight. No, she said. I need to make a stop first. She directed her driver to a toy store she'd passed 100 times but never entered. Inside, she found herself overwhelmed by the sheer chaos of color and noise and options. A teenage employee approached her cautiously. Can I help you find something? I need a gift for a 5-year-old girl. She likes Moana. The employee's face lit up. Oh, we have tons of Moana stuff. Follow me. 20 minutes later, Victoria left with a stuffed Moana doll, a coloring book, and a dress-up costume. She felt ridiculous and delighted in equal measure. When she arrived at Daniel's house that evening, Emma answered the door wearing an apron that was at least 3 sizes too big. Victoria. You came. I'm making dinner. I heard. What are we having? Spaghetti. I'm in charge of stirring. Daniel appeared behind his daughter, looking harried and covered in flour. Fair warning, the kitchen is a disaster area. I don't mind disasters, Victoria said, handing Emma the gift bag. I brought you something. Emma's eyes went wide. She pulled out the Moana doll and let out a squeal that probably shattered glass in a 3-block radius. Daddy, it's Moana, the real Moana. What do you say, Pequeña? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Emma hugged Victoria fiercely. The doll squished between them. Maria emerged from the kitchen smiling. Victoria, perfect timing. We're just about to start the chaos. I mean cooking. Inside the kitchen was indeed a disaster. Flour covered every surface, pasta sauce splattered the stove, and something that might have once been garlic bread was smoking slightly in the oven. I tried to suggest ordering pizza, Daniel said, rescuing the garlic bread. But Emma insisted we cook for our guest. Because cooking is more special. Emma explained, climbing onto a stool to peer into the pot of boiling pasta. Can I stir again? Carefully, Daniel warned, helping her hold the spoon. Victoria watched them work together. Daniel's patience endless as Emma asked 1,000 questions about why the water was bubbling and whether spaghetti was made of worms and if they could put gummy bears in the sauce. Maria moved around them with practiced ease, quietly fixing Emma's mistakes and salvaging what she could. Can I help? Victoria asked. You can set the table, Maria said. Plates are in that cabinet. Emma picked out special napkins for tonight. Victoria found the napkins bright pink with unicorns on them. She set 4 places at the small dining table, feeling a strange sense of peace settling over her. This was nothing like the formal dinners she usually attended. No business casual dress code, no networking, no agenda. Just a family sharing a meal. Except she wasn't family. She was a stranger who'd inserted herself into their lives. Hey. Daniel appeared beside her, his voice low. You okay? You seem a million miles away. Just thinking. About... Victoria looked at him. This man who barely knew her, but seemed to see her more clearly than people she'd worked with for years. About how I had the worst professional morning of my life, and somehow being here setting a table with unicorn napkins is exactly where I want to be. Daniel studied her face. What happened? My board voted to approve a merger that would force me out as CEO. My father orchestrated the whole thing, and I basically told them all to go to hell. Wow. Okay. That's intense. It gets worse. I probably just destroyed my relationship with my father, permanently alienated most of my board, and put my entire company at risk. And I have no idea what to do next. But you stood your ground. I did. Then you did the right thing. Daniel's hand found hers, squeezed gently. I don't know much about corporate politics, but I know you. And I know you wouldn't fight this hard unless it mattered. You don't know me, Victoria said, but without heat. We've known each other less than a week. Sometimes a week is enough. Daniel's thumb traced circles on her palm. Sophia got sick 3 weeks after we met. Brain aneurysm, completely unexpected. I spent those 3 weeks getting to know her in a hospital room, watching her fight, listening to her talk about all the things she wanted to do when she got better. His voice roughened. She didn't get better. She died 6 weeks later. But I married her anyway in that hospital room with Emma already growing inside her. Because I knew. 3 weeks was enough. Victoria felt tears burning her eyes. I'm sorry. My point is, time isn't what matters. Connection is. And I feel more connected to you after 5 days than I did to most people I've known for years. He released her hand, stepped back. So yeah, maybe I don't know your favorite color, or your middle name, or what you studied in college, but I know you're brave and brilliant, and so scared of letting people in that you've built walls tall enough to keep everyone out. That's not... Isn't it? You told me yourself. You've been alone for 5 years because it was easier. Because people leave and it hurts, and it's simpler to just not let them close in the first place. Daniel's voice was gentle, but unflinching. I get it, Victoria. I do. After Sophia died, I wanted to build those same walls, but then I'd look at Emma, and I'd realize that closing myself off meant closing her off too. And she deserved better than a father who was too scared to love again. Dinner's ready, Emma called from the kitchen. Come on, everybody. They gathered around the table, Emma insisting on sitting between Victoria and Daniel. The spaghetti was overcooked, the sauce was too salty, and the garlic bread was definitely burnt. It was the best meal Victoria had eaten in years. Emma narrated the entire cooking process, explaining in vivid detail how she'd almost dropped the pasta, how Daddy had saved it, how Abuela had added secret ingredients that made everything taste better. What are the secret ingredients? Victoria asked. Maria smiled mysteriously. If I told you they wouldn't be secret. It's love, Emma whispered loudly. Abuela told me. She puts love in all her cooking. Then that explains why it tastes so good, Victoria said. After dinner, Emma insisted on showing Victoria her room. It was small but cheerful, filled with toys and books and drawings taped to the walls. Emma pulled out a crayon masterpiece. This is my family, she explained, pointing to stick figures. That's Daddy, that's Abuela, that's me, and that's Mama in heaven. She looked up at Victoria with those serious brown eyes. Do you have a family picture? Not really. It's just me and my father, and we don't really do pictures. That's sad. Families should have pictures. You're probably right. Emma was quiet for a moment, chewing on her lower lip. Then she grabbed a fresh piece of paper and started drawing furiously. What are you making? Victoria asked. A new picture, with you in it. Emma drew with complete concentration, her tongue poking out slightly. After a few minutes, she held up the paper. See, that's you. Victoria looked at the stick figure with yellow hair in a purple chair with wheels. Next to her stood other stick figures, clearly representing Emma, Daniel, and Maria. That's beautiful, Emma. It's your family picture, so you have one now. Emma pressed the drawing into Victoria's hands. You can keep it. Victoria stared at the crayon, drawing her throat tight. Thank you, she managed to whisper. You're welcome. Now you're not alone anymore. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep and Maria had retired to her room, Victoria and Daniel sat on the back porch. The night was cool, stars visible despite the city lights. "She really likes you," Daniel said quietly. "She's been asking about you all week." "I really like her too. Both of you, actually. All of you." Even after one chaotic dinner where nothing went according to plan, especially after that. Victoria looked at him. "Can I ask you something? How did you do it? After Sophia died, how did you keep going?" Daniel was quiet for a long time. "I didn't have a choice. Emma needed me. Maria needed me. And somewhere deep down I knew Sophia would have kicked my ass if I gave up." He smiled sadly. "But if I'm being honest, some days I didn't keep going. Some days I just survived. I'd wake up, get Emma to daycare, go to work, come home, put her to bed, and then sit in the dark wondering how I was supposed to do this for the rest of my life." What changed? Nothing changed. I just started accepting that this was my life now. That grief wasn't something to get over, but something to carry. And once I accepted that, it got a little easier. He looked at Victoria. "Why are you really asking?" "Because I've spent 5 years trying to prove that I got over my accident. That it didn't break me, didn't change me, didn't matter. But the truth is, it did all of those things. And I don't know how to accept that." "Maybe you don't have to accept it. Maybe you just have to stop fighting it." Victoria thought about her penthouse with its impossible counters and her company that had consumed her life and her father who looked at her like a problem to be solved. "I think I've been fighting the wrong battles," she said softly. "What do you mean?" "I've been fighting to prove I don't need help, that I'm fine on my own, that my disability doesn't define me." She looked down at Emma's drawing still clutched in her hands. "But I'm not fine. I do need help. And maybe my disability does define me, at least partially. Maybe that's okay." "It's more than okay," Daniel said. "It's human." They sat in comfortable silence, the night settling around them. Finally, Daniel spoke again. "I accepted your apartment offer. Maria and I talked it over. We'd like to move in next week if that works for you." "Really?" "Really. But I have one condition." "What's that?" "You let me redesign your penthouse, the full treatment. Not just consultations, but actual implementation. I want to turn that museum into a home." Victoria felt her chest tighten. "That's a big project." "I know, but I think you need it. And I think you'll never actually do it unless someone pushes you." "You barely know me, and you're already pushing me." Daniel grinned. "Someone has to. You're too stubborn to do it yourself." Victoria found herself laughing, the sound surprising her. "Fine, but I have a condition too." "Oh." "You let me create that accessibility division at Sterling Dynamics and let me hire you to run it, not as a consultant, as an actual employee. Full-time, full benefits, competitive salary." "Victoria, I can't." "Why not? You said yourself you wanted to do more in the field. You applied to that hospital position. Why not this?" "Because it feels like charity." "It's not charity, it's business." Victoria met his eyes. "I told you I don't hire cheap consultants. I'm offering you this because you're good at what you do, and because my company needs someone like you. The fact that I also happen to like you and your daughter is just a bonus." Daniel studied her for a long moment. "You're serious about this?" "Completely serious." "Then I accept. But only if you promise me something." "What?" "That you'll actually use the modified spaces I design. That you'll stop pretending you don't need them. That you'll let yourself live in your own home instead of just existing in it." Victoria felt exposed, vulnerable. Every instinct screamed at her to deflect, to make a joke, to change the subject. But she forced herself to meet Daniel's gaze and say, "I promise." "Good." Daniel stood, offering his hand to help her up. "Come on. Maria made tres leches cake, and will be offended if we don't eat it." Inside, they found Maria waiting with cake and coffee. She served generous portions, watching with satisfaction as they ate. "This is incredible," Victoria said truthfully. "My Sophia's recipe," Maria said quietly. "She made it for Daniel on their first date. I've been making it for Emma since she was old enough to eat cake." "Mama loved cake." Emma had appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, I can't sleep." "Come here, pequeña." Daniel pulled her into his lap. "What's wrong?" "I keep thinking about Mama. Do you think she knows about Victoria?" Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "I think Mama knows everything." "Do you think she'd like Victoria?" "I think she'd love Victoria." Emma nodded, satisfied, and snuggled against her father's chest. Within minutes, she was asleep again. Victoria watched them, father and daughter, and felt something shift deep inside her. This was what she'd been missing. Not just connection, but family. Not perfection, but presence. Not proving her worth, but simply being worthy of love. "I should go," she said quietly. "It's late." "Stay," Maria said. "Just for coffee. Tell us about this company you've built." So Victoria stayed. She told them about Sterling Dynamics, about building it from a hospital bed, about the AI systems they'd developed. She told them about her father's merger attempt, about the board meeting, about her decision to fight. "What will you do?" Maria asked. "I don't know yet. Legally, they can't force me to sell, but they can make my life difficult, call for votes of no confidence, try to prove I'm unfit to lead." "Are you unfit to lead?" Daniel asked. "No, but I am tired of leading alone." Victoria looked at both of them. "For 5 years I've run this company like it's the only thing that matters. I've sacrificed everything else for success. And somewhere along the way I forgot why I started it in the first place." "Why did you start it?" Emma had woken up again, listening with those serious eyes. Victoria thought about it. "Because I wanted to help people like me. People who need technology to adapt to them instead of forcing them to adapt to technology." "Then that's what you should do," Emma said simply. "Help people, like Daddy does." Out of the mouths of babes, Victoria thought. It was that simple. Not building an empire, not proving her worth, not showing her father she didn't need him. Just helping people. "You're a very smart little girl," Victoria told Emma. "I know," Emma said, without a trace of arrogance. "Daddy tells me all the time." Victoria left around midnight, her head full of plans and possibilities. When she got home to her empty penthouse with its 2 high counters and impossible spaces, she didn't feel defeated. She felt determined. She opened her laptop and started typing. Not an email to her lawyer, though she'd need to do that too. Not a strategy document for fighting the merger. A business plan for what Sterling Dynamics could become if she stopped trying to build what her father wanted and started building what she believed in. By the time the sun rose, Victoria had a vision. And for the first time in 5 years, she had people to help her achieve it. 3 months later, Victoria stood in what used to be her intimidating penthouse and barely recognized it. The sunken living room had been leveled. The kitchen counters had been lowered. The master bathroom now had a roll-in shower with a built-in bench. Every door had been widened, every light switch lowered, every cabinet redesigned. Daniel had transformed her museum into a home. "What do you think?" he asked, watching her face carefully. Victoria wheeled through the space, running her hands along the new counters, testing the smooth transitions between rooms. For the first time since moving in, she could access every part of her own home. "I think I want to cry," she admitted. "Good tears or bad tears?" "Good tears. Definitely good tears." She turned to face him. "How did you know exactly what I needed?" "I paid attention. I watched how you moved through the space where you struggled, what you avoided, and then I designed for you, not for some abstract idea of accessibility." Emma came running in from the bedroom, her footsteps echoing through the newly opened space. "Victoria, come see, your closet is amazing now." Victoria followed her to the master bedroom, where Emma was demonstrating the new motorized closet rods that lowered at the touch of a button. See, you push this and everything comes down. It's like magic. It's pretty magical, Victoria agreed. Daniel and Maria had moved into the building 6 weeks ago, and Emma had appointed herself Victoria's personal decorator, insisting on adding happy colors to Victoria's minimalist palette. The result was a home that actually felt lived in. Bright throw pillows on the couch, artwork at wheelchair height, fresh flowers on the kitchen table. Abuela says dinner's in an hour, Emma announced. She's making her special chicken. Can you come, please? I don't know, Pequeña. Victoria might have work. I'd love to come. Victoria interrupted. Over the past 3 months, dinner with the Rodriguez-Martinez family had become a regular occurrence. Sometimes in their apartment, sometimes in hers. Always loud, always warm, always exactly what she needed. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. I have to take this, she said apologetically. Work crisis. She answered as Emma and Daniel headed back downstairs. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. The investors loved your presentation. They're ready to commit $50 million to the new accessibility division. Victoria felt her heart leap. Seriously. They said it was the most passionate pitch they'd heard in years. Direct quote, "This is what tech should be doing." After the disastrous board meeting 3 months ago, Victoria had made a choice. Instead of fighting her father's merger head-on, she'd gone around him. She'd started pitching investors on a new vision for Sterling Dynamics, one focused entirely on accessibility technology. Not as a side project or PR move, but as the company's core mission. The response had been overwhelming. There's more, Marcus continued. 3 board members approached me privately. They want to call a vote to remove your father from the board. Why? Because they're finally seeing what I've seen all along. Your father was never interested in building Sterling Dynamics. He was interested in selling it for a profit. But your vision, Victoria, that's something worth building. Victoria sat down heavily. Who are the 3? Jennifer, Elizabeth, and Tom. They said if you can get 2 more votes, they'll make the motion officially. That's only 6 total, including you. We need 7 for majority. I know, but it's a start. After the call ended, Victoria sat in her newly accessible kitchen, staring at her phone. 3 months ago, she'd felt completely alone in her fight. Now she had allies, support, a real chance at saving her company on her own terms. Her phone rang again. This time a number she didn't recognize. Ms. Sterling. This is Patricia Chen from San Francisco Children's Hospital. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. Not at all. How can I help you? I'm calling about Daniel Rodriguez. He applied for a position here several months ago, and we're finally ready to move forward. His references are impeccable, particularly the one from you. I wanted to ask if he's still available. Victoria's stomach dropped. I'm not sure. He's currently working with my company. Oh, I see. Patricia sounded disappointed. Well, if his situation changes, we'd love to speak with him. The work he did on accessibility design is exactly what we need here. After the call ended, Victoria sat there feeling sick. Daniel deserved that position. It was important work, meaningful work, and she was keeping him from it by offering him a comfortable job at Sterling Dynamics. She wheeled herself to the window, looking out over the city. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange. Beautiful. Empty. A knock at her door. Daniel. Emma wanted me to tell you dinner's in 30 minutes now, not an hour. Apparently, Abuela's cooking faster than expected. He paused, studying her face. What's wrong? The children's hospital called. They want to interview you. Daniel's expression shifted. Oh. You should take it. It's important work. So is the work I'm doing here. Daniel, be honest. Which job actually matters to you? He was quiet for a long moment. They both matter. But the hospital work, that's my calling. That's what I got into this field to do. Then why didn't you tell me they'd reached out? Because I wasn't sure I wanted it anymore. Because I like working here. Because Emma's settled, and Maria's happy, and I didn't want to disrupt everything again. And because of me? Victoria asked quietly. Daniel met her eyes. Yeah, because of you. That's not fair to you. Maybe not, but it's my choice to make. Daniel. Victoria. 3 months ago, I was a single dad barely making rent, living with my mother-in-law, taking whatever construction jobs I could find. Now I'm heading an entire division at a major tech company, living in an apartment I can actually afford, watching my daughter thrive. And I met someone who makes me feel like maybe someday I could love again. His voice roughened. So forgive me if I'm not jumping at the chance to leave that behind. Victoria's heart was pounding. You can't stay because of me. Why not? Because I'm a mess. Because my company is imploding. Because my father's trying to destroy everything I've built. Because I don't know how to be in a relationship without destroying it. You're not a mess. You're figuring things out. There's a difference. Daniel moved closer. And for what it's worth, I'm a mess too. I'm a widower with a 5-year-old and a live-in mother-in-law, and approximately 0 dating experience in the last 7 years. So if we're both messes, maybe we can be messes together. That's the worst logic I've ever heard. Probably. But I'm sticking with it. Victoria wanted to argue, to list all the reasons this was a terrible idea, to push him away before he got too close. But she was tired of fighting. Tired of being alone. Tired of pretending she didn't want exactly what he was offering. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. Do what? This. Us. Whatever this is becoming. Then we'll figure it out together. Daniel took her hand. I'm not asking for perfect, Victoria. I'm just asking for honest. I can do honest. Then start now. What are you really afraid of? Victoria looked at their joined hands, his scarred and capable, hers, trembling slightly. I'm afraid you'll realize I'm not worth the effort. That my damage is too much. That one day you'll look at me the way Kyle did in that hospital room, like I'm a burden you never signed up for. Kyle was an idiot. Kyle was realistic. No, he was a coward. There's a difference. Daniel's grip tightened. You want to know what I see when I look at you? I see someone who built a company from a hospital bed. Someone who fights for what they believe in, even when everyone tells them to give up. Someone who took a chance on a stranger and his daughter, because a 5-year-old asked why she was alone. He smiled. I see someone brave and brilliant, and so scared of being vulnerable that she'd rather be lonely than risk getting hurt again. That's not... Victoria stopped. It was exactly that. I'm not asking you to stop being scared, Daniel said quietly. I'm just asking you to be scared with me instead of by yourself. Before Victoria could respond, Emma burst through the door. Dinner's ready. Abuela says come now, or it'll get cold and she'll be sad. Daniel laughed, the moment broken but not lost. We're coming, pequeña. Downstairs in Maria's apartment, the table was set with mismatched plates and those ridiculous unicorn napkins Emma loved. The food smelled incredible. Finally, Emma said. I thought you forgot. Never, Victoria said. I'd never forget dinner with my favorite people. The meal was chaotic as always. Emma narrated everything. Maria kept insisting everyone eat more, and Daniel caught Victoria's eye across the table more than once, his expression saying clearly that their conversation wasn't finished. After dinner, while Maria and Daniel cleaned up, Emma pulled Victoria aside. Can I tell you a secret? Emma whispered. Of course. I asked Abuela if you could be my new mama. She said it doesn't work like that Daddy would have to love you first, and then you'd have to love him back, and then maybe you'd get married. Emma looked up at Victoria with those serious brown eyes. So do you love my daddy? Victoria's breath caught. Emma, that's complicated. Why? Because grown-up feelings are hard. But do you? Emma persisted. Victoria looked across the kitchen at Daniel, who was laughing at something Maria said, dish towel slung over his shoulder, completely at ease. She thought about the past 3 months, about how he'd redesigned her home and pushed her out of her comfort zone and made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to be happy. "Yeah," she said softly. "I think I do." Emma's face lit up like Christmas morning. "I knew it, Abuela Victoria loves Daddy." "Emma." Victoria felt her face burning. Daniel dropped the dish he was drying. It shattered on the floor, but no one moved. "Emma, go to your room," Maria said firmly. "But, now mija." Emma scurried off looking worried. Maria turned to Victoria and Daniel, hands on her hips. "You two. Living room. Now." They followed like chastened children. Maria shut the door and crossed her arms. "I've been watching you both dance around each other for 3 months. No more dancing. Daniel, do you have feelings for Victoria?" "Mama, answer the question." Daniel looked at Victoria, his expression raw. "Yes, I have feelings for her." "And Victoria, do you have feelings for my son-in-law?" Victoria wanted to run, to make an excuse, to protect herself, but she'd promised Daniel honesty. "Yes," she whispered. Maria nodded, satisfied. "Good. Then stop wasting time. Life is too short to be afraid of happiness. I watched my daughter die at 30 years old. I know exactly how short life can be." Her voice broke slightly. "Sophia would want you to be happy, Daniel. She told me so right before the end. She made me promise I'd make sure you didn't spend the rest of your life alone." "Mama." "And you, Victoria. You've spent 5 years building walls because you're afraid of being hurt. But here's the truth, you're going to get hurt anyway. That's life. The question is whether you want to get hurt alone or with people who love you." Maria softened. "My daughter was brave enough to marry Daniel knowing she might not have much time. Are you brave enough to take a chance when you have all the time in the world?" With that, Maria left them alone in the living room, the sound of her footsteps fading down the hall. Daniel spoke first. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for Emma to put you on the spot like that." "She didn't. She just said what I've been too scared to say." Victoria wheeled closer to him. "Daniel, I'm terrified. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be someone's partner or Emma's anything or part of a family. I've been alone for so long I'm not sure I remember how to be anything else. So we'll learn together." "What if I'm bad at it?" "Then you'll be bad at it and we'll figure it out." Daniel knelt down so they were eye to eye. "Victoria, I'm not asking for perfect. I'm not asking for easy. I'm just asking for real. Can you give me that?" Victoria thought about her father's accusations in the boardroom, about how her company was all she had, how she'd sacrificed everything for success, how she was terrified of being nothing without her position. She thought about Emma asking why she was alone. She thought about 3 months of dinners and laughter, and feeling like maybe, just maybe, she belonged somewhere. "Yes," she said. "I can give you real." Daniel's smile was brilliant. He stood pulling her up with him and kissed her. It was gentle and uncertain and perfect. When they broke apart, Emma was peeking around the corner, grinning triumphantly. "I knew it!" she shrieked, running over to hug them both. "Does this mean Victoria's going to be my mama?" "Whoa, slow down, pequeña," Daniel said, laughing. "One step at a time. But she will be right eventually." Victoria found herself laughing, too dizzy with happiness and terror. "Maybe eventually, if I don't mess this up first." "You won't mess it up," Emma said with absolute confidence. "Because we love you and you love us, and that's what matters." The next morning, Victoria walked into Sterling Dynamics feeling different. Not because her problems had magically disappeared, but because she finally understood what she was fighting for. Not just a company, not just her position, but a life worth living. Rachel met her at the elevator looking worried. "Your father's here, in your office." "Of course he is." Richard Sterling stood at the window, his back to the door. He didn't turn when Victoria entered. "I heard you've been meeting with investors," he said. "Behind my back." Not behind your back, around it. There's a difference. Do you have any idea what you're risking? If this accessibility division fails, it'll destroy the entire company. It won't fail. You don't know that. Neither do you. Victoria wheeled around her desk, forcing her father to face her. But I believe in it, and that's something you've never understood. You only care about the bottom line, about profit margins and market share. But some things are more important than money. Like what? Like actually helping people. Like building something that matters. Like having a life outside of work. Victoria met her father's eyes. I met someone. Richard's expression flickered with surprise. What? His name is Daniel. He has a daughter. They've been teaching me that there's more to life than proving my worth through success. Victoria, that's wonderful, but it doesn't change the business reality. I'm not finished. Victoria straightened in her chair. 3 board members are calling for a vote to remove you from the board. If I can get 2 more votes, you're out. Her father paled. You wouldn't. I would. And I will if you don't back down from this merger. Sterling Dynamics is my company, Dad. I built it, and I'm not letting you sell it just because you think I'm incapable of running it properly. That's not why. Isn't it? You've been trying to control my life since the accident. The medical care, the settlements, the board appointments. You've manipulated everything to make yourself feel better about having a disabled daughter. I was trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need support. There's a difference. Victoria felt tears threatening, but refused to let them fall. For 5 years, I've been trying to prove to you that I'm still valuable, still capable, still worth something. But I'm done. I don't need your approval anymore. Richard was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. After the accident, when you were in the hospital, the doctors told me you might never walk again. That your life would be limited, difficult, painful. And all I could think was that I'd failed you. That I should have protected you better, should have insisted you take a different car, should have done something. Dad. So I tried to fix it. I threw money at the problem, hired the best doctors, controlled everything I could control. Because if I could fix your life, maybe I could forgive myself. He finally looked at her, his eyes red. But I never asked what you wanted. I just assumed I knew what was best. I wanted you to believe in me, Victoria said quietly. That's all I ever wanted. I do believe in you. I just have a terrible way of showing it. Richard sat down heavily. I'll withdraw my support for the merger, and I'll step down from the board. You don't have to. Yes, I do. This is your company, Victoria. It always has been. I've just been too proud to admit it. He stood, moving toward the door. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago. After he left, Victoria sat alone in her office, feeling like the world had shifted on its axis. Her father had actually listened, actually backed down, actually apologized. Rachel knocked on the door. You okay? I think so. Is that weird? After the morning you've had, nothing would be weird. Rachel handed her a folder. The contracts for the accessibility division. Daniel's already signed his. We just need your signature to make it official. Victoria opened the folder, scanning the documents. Everything looked perfect. Everything looked terrifying. She signed anyway. Over the next 6 months, Sterling Dynamics transformed. The accessibility division launched to overwhelming response. Daniel hired a team of designers and engineers who actually understood disability from personal experience. Emma became the unofficial company mascot, visiting the office after school and giving her opinions on user interfaces with the brutal honesty only a kindergartner could muster. Victoria's relationship with Daniel deepened slowly, carefully. They had dinner together most nights. They took Emma to the park on weekends. They argued about design choices and laughed at inside jokes and learned each other's rhythms. It wasn't perfect. Daniel still had moments where grief overwhelmed him, where Sophia's absence was so acute he could barely function. Victoria still had moments of panic, where her old fears came roaring back and she wanted to run. But they stayed. They both stayed. 1 year after meeting in that cafe, Victoria stood in front of the Sterling Dynamics board with a very different presentation. Not about mergers or acquisitions or market domination. About impact. In the past 12 months, our accessibility division has helped over 50,000 users, she told the assembled board members. We've partnered with schools, hospitals, community centers. We've hired people with disabilities not as token gestures, but as essential team members. And we've proven that doing good and doing well aren't mutually exclusive. Jennifer Wallace smiled. The numbers support that. The accessibility division is now our fastest growing segment. Profit margins are exceeding projections by 30%. More importantly, Victoria continued, we've built something I'm actually proud of. Not just a successful company, but a meaningful one. After the meeting, Daniel was waiting outside with Emma. She'd lost her first tooth that morning and wouldn't stop showing everyone. How'd it go? Daniel asked. The board approved expansion plans for the accessibility division, full funding, additional staff, everything we asked for. That's amazing. He pulled her into a hug, then hesitated. I have news too. The Children's Hospital reached out again. Victoria's stomach dropped. And I told them I wasn't interested. I'm exactly where I want to be. Daniel, you can't give up your dreams for me. I'm not. My dream was always to help kids with disabilities have better access to the world. I'm doing that every day with Sterling Dynamics. The location doesn't matter. He squeezed her hand. Besides, I have other dreams now too. Like what? Like this. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Victoria's breath caught. Daniel, what are you? Relax. I'm not proposing. Not yet. He opened the box to reveal a key. Maria found a house. 3 bedrooms fully accessible with a yard for Emma. She's buying it and she asked if we'd want to live there. All of us. Together. That's a big step. I know. And if it's too fast, we can wait. But I've spent the last year getting to know you, Victoria Sterling. I've watched you transform your company, rebuild your relationship with your father, learn to let people in. And I can't imagine my future without you in it. Emma tugged on Victoria's sleeve. Say yes. Please say yes. I already picked out your room. Victoria looked at Daniel and Emma at the life they were offering. Messy and complicated and absolutely terrifying. Yes, she said. Let's do it. Emma shrieked with joy. Daniel kissed her right there in the Sterling Dynamics lobby, with employees walking past and staring. Victoria didn't care. For the first time in 6 years, she wasn't alone. And it was terrifying and wonderful and exactly what she needed. 6 months later, Victoria stood in front of a mirror in a simple white dress, her hands shaking as she adjusted the fabric. Rachel was there helping with final touches, and Maria was crying happy tears in the corner. You look beautiful, Rachel said. I look terrified. You can be both. Emma burst into the room wearing her flower girl dress, her face glowing. It's time, everyone's waiting. The ceremony was small. Just family and close friends in the garden behind their new house. No corporate guests, no networking opportunities, no agenda beyond celebrating love. Victoria had designed special crutches for the ceremony, wanting to walk down the aisle instead of using her wheelchair. They were beautiful, crafted by Daniel himself, decorated with small flowers that matched her bouquet. As she made her way toward him, one careful step at a time, Daniel's face transformed. He was crying, not bothering to hide it, and Victoria found herself crying too. Emma walked ahead, scattering petals, with theatrical enthusiasm. When Victoria reached Daniel, he took her hands in his. I thought I'd lost my chance at this, he whispered. After Sophia died, I thought I'd used up my one shot at happiness. But you taught me that love doesn't have a limit. That opening your heart again isn't betraying the past, it's honoring it. You taught me that being vulnerable isn't weakness, Victoria replied. That needing people doesn't make me less capable. that I deserve to be loved exactly as I am." The officiant began the ceremony, but Victoria barely heard the words. She was too focused on Daniel's hands holding hers on Emma, beaming from the front row on Maria, dabbing her eyes on all the people who'd shown up to celebrate this moment. 1 year ago, a 5-year-old girl had asked her a simple question: "Why are you alone?" Now, surrounded by family and friends, holding the hands of a man who saw her completely and loved her anyway, Victoria finally had her answer. She wasn't alone anymore, and she never would be again. When the officiant pronounced them married, Daniel lifted her off her feet, spinning her around as she laughed. Emma ran over, demanding to be included in the hug. "We're a family now," Emma announced to everyone. "A real family." "We were already a family," Daniel corrected gently. "This just makes it official." That night at the reception, Victoria's father approached her nervously. They'd been slowly rebuilding their relationship, but it was still fragile. "You look happy," Richard said. "I am happy. I'm glad. And I'm sorry I spent so many years trying to control your happiness instead of supporting it." "I know, Dad. We're working on it. I got you something." He handed her an envelope. It's not much, but inside was a check for $5 million. "This is too much. It's seed money for your accessibility division. Not as an investor, not as someone trying to control your company. Just as a father who's proud of his daughter and wants to support what she's building." Victoria felt tears welling up. "Thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me even when I didn't deserve your patience." They hugged, awkward but genuine, and Victoria felt another piece of her heart heal. Later, as the party wound down, Victoria found herself alone with Daniel on the porch. Emma was asleep inside, and Maria had gone home. "Happy?" Daniel asked. "Ridiculously happy. Almost suspiciously happy." "Better get used to it. I plan on making you this happy for the rest of your life." Victoria leaned against him, watching the stars. "You know what's funny? A year ago, I thought success meant running a company, making money, proving my worth. Now I know success is this: coming home to people who love you, building something meaningful, having a 5-year-old critique your work with brutal honesty. Emma does keep us humble. She keeps us honest." Victoria turned to face him. "Thank you for not giving up on me, for pushing me out of my comfort zone, for asking me why I was alone. That was Emma, not me. But you raised a daughter brave enough to ask the hard questions. That's your doing." Daniel kissed her forehead. "We're going to be okay, aren't we? Better than okay, we're going to be happy." And they were. Not perfectly, not without challenges, not without moments of grief and fear and doubt. But they were happy, together. Victoria Sterling had spent 5 years building walls around her heart, convinced that being alone was safer than being vulnerable. It had taken one question from a curious child to make her realize that safety and happiness weren't the same thing. "Why are you alone?" She'd been alone because she'd chosen to be, because it was easier, because people left, and it hurt. But now she chose differently. She chose love and family, and the terrifying vulnerability of letting people in. She chose to be seen completely disability, and all by people who loved her, not despite her challenges, but because of everything she was. And that made all the difference.